In this property education video, I'm going to share with you a full property market update for May 2024. I'm going to talk about interest rates, I'm going to talk about inflation, I'm going to talk about property prices and also rental rate increases. So first of all, let's talk about interest rates. Now, interest rates has caused a bit of a problem for many homeowners and also many property investors because they're relatively high at 5.25% for the Bank of England base rate, compared to the last decade where we had a base rate at only 0.5%. So why has this happened? Well, obviously during COVID, the government spent a lot of money. So in 2022, we really started to see the effect of all that spending because we saw inflation jump up into 2023, where we saw inflation over 10%. And the UK government committed to bring inflation down. Now, the way they do that is working with the Bank of England, who use interest rates as a macroeconomic tool to control inflation. So in other words, whether you have high inflation, the Bank of England raised the interest rates to make it more expensive to borrow, which slows the economy down. Now, that policy has obviously worked. Rishi Sunak last year was saying he wanted to halve the rate of inflation, which they actually achieved. And at the latest count, the official figure for inflation was 3.2%. Now, I'll come back to that later in this video, but let's continue talking about interest rates. So the Bank of England last week just announced that they're leaving interest rates at 5.25%. Now, interesting, on the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee, out of the 9 members, 2 of the members voted to bring rates down, whereas 7 people still wanted to keep the rates at the 5.25%. And that is because they're saying inflation hasn't come down enough yet. Now, Andrew Bailey, who's the governor of the Bank of England, what he said was, well, he's not ruling out the possibility of interest rates cut, but he's not saying they could happen either in June. A lot of people think they might happen in August. There's general opinion that interest rates probably will come down this year, maybe cut 3 times, but we don't know how much they're going to be cut by. They might be small increments such as 0.25%, but if they feel that they really want to stimulate the economy, they could even do a half or even a 1% cut, which has definitely been done in the past. So the question is, what's going to happen to inflation? And that's what I want to talk about next, because until inflation, the Bank of England really think it's under control and coming down, they're not going to bring down the interest rates. What that means for you and me as property investors is that mortgages are still relatively high. However, we have to bear in mind that the interest rates that we're paying right now are not that dissimilar to the rates back in 2007, just before the financial global crisis and the last property market crash. So whenever I'm investing in property and teaching my students to invest, I teach them to use a 6% interest rate. Now, for the last decade, the actual pay rate's been a lot lower than 6%. So if you do your calculation of 6%, it means you're going to make more money than expect. And all of my students who stack their deals at 6%, when rates went up, they've still been making money on their property investments. The problem over the last decade, a lot of people bought properties, they maybe stacked the deal at maybe a 3% interest rate, and as interest rates have gone up to maybe a pay rate of 6%, it means many single-let properties are no longer making any money. In fact, many properties are technically losing money, but because of Section 24, which is the new way we're taxed as property investors, which came in April 2017, you can be losing money on your property, but on paper, you're making a phantom profit as you have to pay the tax man. So this is what we call the double whammy. Not only are you not actually making money from your single let property, you still have to pay some tax to the taxman at the end of the tax year. This is one of the reasons we're seeing many landlords selling their properties, which is adding to this buyer's market that we have at the moment. I'm going to talk about buyer's market later in this video.
So now let's talk about inflation. Now, the official figure for inflation right now, as the time I record this, is 3.2%. And it's come down dramatically. It was a double-digit inflation at the beginning of 2023. And the government committed to bring it down. And that's one of the reasons interest rates are being used to control inflation. However, I don't feel that inflation is 3.2%. That's the official figure, but it feels like a lot more to me. I mean, if you go to the shops, see how expensive groceries are. Obviously, things like fuel costs have all come down. That's helped inflation come down. However, the Office of National Statistics have just published figures saying up until March 2024, for the last 12 months, rental prices have increased by 9.2%. And obviously, cost of living, part of that is accommodation. So if people are renting, those costs have all gone up. If people have a mortgage, if they've got a flexible mortgage, that's obviously gone up as well. So I think the cost of living is probably a lot more than 3.2%. It certainly feels like that. So maybe that's why the Bank of England have not brought down the Bank of England base rate yet. Maybe they're waiting for it to come down further, and maybe they're worried about the true cost of inflation actually going up. So obviously, this is going to have an impact on property prices. Let's talk about that next.
So now let's talk about property prices. That's what you want to know about, right? So what's going to happen to UK property prices in the next 12 months? Well, the honest answer is, I don't know. And to be honest, no one knows what's going to happen. Let's look at some of the factors. What we've seen recently is obviously we had a massive boom, a surprise boom during the COVID years. And the reason that happened was the government printed a lot of money and they made bounce back loans available to people who were supposed to use them to support their businesses. But I think a lot of that money went into the property market. Also, they removed the stamp duty, so they had stamp duty holiday, which encouraged people buying cheaper properties to get into the property market. So we had this unexpected boom. Then it got to a point where actually property prices were just a little bit too high and interest rates went up. It was not really affordable to get mortgages, so the market completely slowed. And in fact, during 2023, the property market came down. It didn't crash, but it definitely declined on average. So what's happening in 2024 to the UK property market? Well, we started off the beginning of the year with property prices starting to increase. About 1% a month was what we were seeing. And then we saw prices in April and March actually falter and start to come down. Now, what normally happens in the spring is there's normally a bit of boom in property prices into the summer. But that hasn't happened. And I think there's this uncertainty about what's going to happen with interest rates. People have been waiting for interest rates to come down to make property deals more affordable. That just hasn't happened. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think we're going to see property prices pretty much plateauing over the rest of this year until interest rates start to come down. When interest rates start to come down, I think we see a lot of investors and homeowners jump back in the market, taking advantage of the fact that we actually have a buyer's market right now. What that means is there are more sellers in the market than there are buyers. So right now is actually a really good time to secure fantastic deals. When there's uncertainty or the market's plateaued or even coming down, it's much easier to negotiate discounts than when the market's going up and all sellers have the expectation that someone's going to come and pay more money for their property. So I think as long as you know what you're doing, now is a really good time to be investing in property. I highly recommend you follow the 5 golden rules that I talk about in my book, Property Magic. If you haven't read that, you definitely want to go and get that on Amazon or get the Audible version. If you've already got it, I encourage you to read it again or listen again, because you'll pick up things the second or third time that you missed the time before. If you've read Property Magic, by the way, just type below what you found about the book. Hopefully you really loved it. So let me know in the comments below. That'd be good to hear. But the 5 golden rules very quickly for you. First of all, we buy from motivated sellers. When in a market like this, there are a lot more motivated sellers who really need to sell their property. Golden rule number 2 is we only buy in an area with a strong rental demand. The great news is right now, if you have a good property in a good area, you're always going to be able to rent it really, really well. Number 3, we only buy for positive cash flow. Now, because of high interest rates, that's a bit difficult with single lets. That doesn't work incredibly well. However, if you're using strategies such as HMOs or service accommodation, you can still get really good cash flow from your properties. Number 4, we buy for long term. And that's really important, because if you're trying to buy based on the best time to buy, when it's the right time, you're probably never going to actually do it, because no one knows what's going to happen to prices. What you need to remember, though, in the UK, because we live in an island with a limited amount of accommodation and an increasing population, over time, property prices go up. They do not always go up. We have a cyclical market. It goes up and it comes down, but the long-term trend is up because of the underlying supply and demand. The UK population is growing. We just do not have enough accommodation. Both the Labour Party and the Conservative government agree that we need 300,000 homes each year, but we're not building anywhere near that, probably less than 200,000 at the moment. Labour have pledged if they get into power, they're going to build 1.5 million new homes over the next 5 years, so 300,000 a year. I have no idea how on earth they're going to do that, because they don't have enough, there just is not enough builders or resources to do that. But let's see, that's what they're saying will happen.
And so golden rule number 5 is we always want to have a cash buffer. It's a little bit of money put aside. It could be in a bank, it could be on a credit card facility, just so if something happens to the property, we can spend that money to get it fixed and get it quickly rented out, so we're bringing cash flow in again. Always important to have a cash buffer. I do hope you've enjoyed this property education video, and if you have, please like the video. It helps the algorithms. Come and comment below if you've got any comments about interest rates or inflation, and also make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so you get notified anytime we bring out a brand new video. It's about 2 videos a week we bring out. The other thing is, it's really important for you to keep updated with changes in the property market. So of course you could watch this YouTube channel, but we have a very special event I'd like to invite you to, completely free of charge. It's a full day of online high value training, no offers, no sales pitches, just some of the very top experts in the UK sharing how you can be a more successful investor. It's called our virtual property exhibition. We do it a couple of times a year. Instead of you having to go to the big property shows in London, you can hear the very same speakers from the comfort of your own home, all in one day on our VPE. So just click on the link in the show notes. Come and join us. Maybe there might be a QR code here on the screen. Come and join us at the VPE and get an update of what's happening in the market. Find out the latest about financing your deals, finding deals, taxation, legislation, all the things you need to know to be a more successful property investor. I do hope you enjoy this video channel. Come and join us on this full day of no cost training. And as ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. Enjoy the next video.